Paula Principal's website. You can do that, or you can reach out to me on email
at twinangel68@gmail.com.
Awesome, awesome. Praise the Lord. So, okay, so yesterday we spoke about women in leadership and we covered varied topics, of course, corporate as well as within the church. But today, the topic that we're going to look at is under the umbrella of possibility ministries. So, just for the listeners out there who are like, possibility ministries, what on earth is that? I just want to give them a brief outline of what it encompasses. So it's grounded in the belief that the gospel transforms the way we see ourselves and others and God, and how we perceive personal value while having bodies that may be less than perfect, and is changed when we understand the implications of God's message. We recognize things like disabilities and loss, but it doesn't stop there. Rather, it's about the transforming lens of possibilities and what every individual can do and become by the grace of God. And just some of the things that Possibility Ministries encompasses are the hearing impaired, the visual impaired, the physically immobile or hidden disabilities, those who have mental health challenges, orphans, vulnerable children, children in care, those mourning the loss of their loved ones, so bereavement support and support of caregivers. So whether you are a caregiver of a child and young person, or sadly, as many are now, the Generation X's are starting to be carers for their parents. And so those are just some of the people group that we care for and that are encompassed under Possibilities Ministries. But just to tap in, the first section I wanted to talk about is oftentimes we don't discuss it, and that's the hidden disabilities and how women today still struggle with still trying to be perfect and be the best in their jobs, but they're struggling within. And just something that people have not recognized, but it's now recognized here in the US, UK, and the US, is that the perimenopausal, menopausal, and postpausal. Yeah, you got peri, you got menopause, and you got post. Those women make up the largest demographic of the workforce at present. And they are going through some stuff. Many are having mental health challenges. Many are also struggling with just trying to go with the brain fog. Many are going through hormonal and imbalance changes. So it's trying to encourage these women in this phase of life and still be their best selves. So as a woman yourself, and you have sisters, how have you maybe encountered that as such the career-minded, driven leader that you are?
Well, to be honest with you, menopause, I'll talk about that because I'm right there in it. It's not conversations that we talked about. I remember talking to my mother a couple of months ago, and I was like, "How come you never told me about menopause?" And she said, "Oh, I don't know. I just thought you knew." And I said, "No, there is not enough conversation around. As we get older, your bodies
change. There's a lot that changes. So I think we are starting to have those conversations, but it's evident to me that that conversation is way overdue.
Right.
is I had to talk to my doctor, and that was important for me to discuss with the doctor what I was feeling, what my body was feeling, what changed.
Feeling. And to be honest with you, I remember going to the doctor in tears, just like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't sleep. I'm tired all the time. So it was just a
Hey, something is different.
Right.
I needed to talk and really sit down and have a conversation with my doctor, and we kind of worked some things out where I could
sleep and body changes and that kind of thing. But we don't have enough conversation about it. I agree with that.
And that's one of the reasons why I thought we should bring it up. As women, this is something that impacts all of us at different phases of our lives. So, of course, if you're, when my doctor was speaking to me, she said, "Oh, well, you know, you should be perimenopausal by now." I said to her, if perimenopause is before the menopause, then from I started my cycle, I've been perimenopausal. So that don't make no sense to me, right? And she was like, "Oh, I'm like, this is nonsense." But she was like, "No, it's the next phase of life before the menopause." I was like, "Wow, wow, wow." And I'm like, I'm rebuking that thing in Jesus. I've been seeing some folks struggling. I'm just keeping it real. I've been telling the Lord, look, I'm a lupus warrior. I don't have time to take on menopause. Okay. I need to just swift through where some people, it doesn't impact them. And others, they're confused.com. And then one of the doctors was like, "Oh, don't worry. You can just take HRT. It's a lovely thing. And it would just take all that away." But I was like, I don't like any unnecessary toxins and things in my body to help me. I like to do things naturally. So I just said, I'm taking it to the Lord to rebuke. I don't want it. Keep it.
Well, the blessing is there are some natural remedies that can help symptoms, not everything. There are some natural things that you can do for the hot flashes. But what I found is if I don't eat a lot of sugar, then I
Yes.
don't have as much.
Yes.
Um,
I got
that's
when my
yeah.
body's behind and had a
Now,
fever.
and when I'm tired and I can't sleep, I used to take melatonin so that it helps me relax and go to sleep, and I don't feel groggy the next day. And I've been taking melatonin for probably a year and a half consistently, and it's always worked for me.
Excellent. So let's bring that to your work life. You've done many roles that are like, I don't want to say stressful, but they are very hectic and they're demanding on you as a woman. How have you navigated that with now taking on the menopause?
So I was very wise again in going to get some assistance from my doctor. And I said to her, I'm tired. I wake up mad, want to fight everybody every morning. I'm afraid I'm gonna choke on these children at the school if I don't do something. And so she suggested me to get something that would help calm my nerves. Ashwanda, to help, ease my anxiety, and so I've been taking that for the last year and a half, and that's helped me relax and giving me an opportunity to navigate the stressful times. Because in the midst of all of that, I was working on my doctorate. I was still teaching full time. I was still principal full time. So it was a lot for me, and trying to be a mother, and trying to be a wife, and trying to be a grandmother. It was just a lot. So what I decided to do is to take the Ashwanda and really supplement my diet so that I could function and work and not come home and literally want to go straight to the bed. That for about 3 or 4 months, I literally came home and went straight to bed because I was exhausted. So that was very helpful for me as well.
Okay, awesome. So you actually used wisdom to try and ensure that you could have your daily life, but not but still function with the menopausal symptoms. I know
Yeah.
for some people have had to, I'm not sure the rules and regulations stateside, but here they've actually put into law to not as a sickness, but you can now have additional days for if you're diagnosed menopausal, so that you can have additional days to support you that you do not have to go in if you're in full employment. And I think that's actually very beneficial because there are women who struggle, and I'm hoping that it comes out more. There are many menopausal coaches now, women who just coach women who are through the menopause because they know that it's different for them. And then you also have now one of the companies that I'm definitely supporting and promoting is They are a company that is run by women who've all been perimenopausal or menopausal, and they've gone through the herbalistic route. Everything is natural to help you, to give you all the things that you need. So I think that's really, really positive. But then, okay, rolling into the fact that you are in leadership roles, when you juggle that, because they say emotionally it can have, you remember you said you wake up wanting to fight. How then did you navigate that? So you have to come in, be a leader, put the best foot forward, but still function. How did you do that?
Much prayer, to be honest, because there were days when I was exhausted, and there were days that, I'd have meetings either with parents or board meeting or whatever. It was very difficult, but the key is to balance out your schedule and to know when to say no. I have a very good girlfriend of mine. She took a hormone replacement there, and she never turned back. She thought that was her thing, and she went forward. I didn't want to do the hormone therapy. I didn't want, and I've had people say that they did the pellets, and the pellets were one way that people were doing that, and they would insert the pellets just like you do a shot. And so it was too expensive for me to do it. My insurance didn't cover that. And it was like $300 a month. And I was like, well, I can't afford that. I'm a teacher. And an admin teacher of that. So I really couldn't afford
that. Plug it. Advanced teacher.
So that wasn't an option for me either. So I had to find other ways to be able to balance out my hormones and to be able to balance out my emotions. Because some days I felt like I want to cry, and some days I wanted to fight and kill somebody. The other day I felt like I wanted to sleep all day and not get out of the bed, but I had to go to work, and I had to go do what I had to do. So I just had to balance that out, and it really helped that my doctor really was helpful in helping me find a way to do it naturally, not necessarily with, a pill or whatever.
There's a question for you. Did you find you were in a safe space within your work environment that you could be honest and say, I'm feeling menopausal, or I'm suffering menopausal symptoms at the moment, so I'm not feeling 100%? Or were you like, no, I have to just hold it together and not say anything? I don't want anyone to know this is what I am. Because
I mean, I think first of all, I had two male teachers, and both of them were married. And I had a young teacher at the time. And so none of them had a clue whether or not what I was wrong. But they started to realize when I walked around, I had a fan that I was walking around with around my neck all the time because I was having hot flashes. And so one day I came in, and I was like, I'm having my own private summer. And they were not stupid. They figured out what I was talking about. So they were able to see that, oh, she's starting to go through the change now. But, I've never been a person ashamed of what I've been or who I am. It's just a different of life for me.
Okay.
And I felt like it was a safe place for them for me to say what I said. I never discussed it with my bosses, but I would, but because I was the boss of the school.
Right, your team, to share with your team, right?
Superintendent, and I had conversations because she and I not only were colleagues, but we were friends before I started working for the school system. So we had conversations as well. So it wasn't ever a situation where I felt like I had to hide it at all.
Okay, awesome. Someone's actually asked, can you please share the what you were taking when you felt a bit anxious and you first started with the menopause? You named something. They want to know what it is. Can you repeat that?
Sure. I started taking Ashwanda. It's something you can buy on Amazon. I can't, ASH Wanda, HANDAGA. Yeah, Ashwanda, Donda. But I started taking that, and that kind of really relaxed me for a while. And yeah, so that helped. Definitely helped.
I mean, that's really positive because one of the things that we're trying to allow women here in the UK is to start to feel comfortable to be able to say, I'm in this space now. And so whereas maybe I used to type 100 words a minute, because of some of the brain fog, I may be at 70. It doesn't mean I'm any less. It just means that now I'm not at that same speed. You know, some people are struggling with trying to still attain and be what they were before and not recognizing and accepting, no, the body is like going through some changes here. So you won't think as quick on your feet, maybe. You might have to write it down so you can go back to remember it. Or, you know, I am emotionally withdrawn at the moment. So I don't really want to hang out and go. Especially here, we have what they call a lunchtime pub culture. So oftentimes at lunch, people will go to the pub to have a drink and have lunch. And then they'll spill it out later on after work. But when you're in that phase, most people have said, I don't want to be like that. I just want to go to work, do my job, and get home. You know, and it doesn't mean I'm not a pleasant person. I'm not in that space anymore. I need to get home where I feel safe, you know.
I
Someone
also think people don't know how to navigate. That many of us didn't get those conversations with our mothers about it. And my mom's a nurse practitioner. She went down the whole gamut, with me once I asked her about it, but it was never a conversation that she brought up to me. And then once I brought it up to her, she said she went through hormone replacement therapy. I was like, well, I don't want to do that. But she gave me options and told me what I could do and what was available to me. And so that kind of helped me navigate where I wanted to go in terms of what's best for my body. So that's
Listen, I'm glad your mum was supportive to you in that. When I've spoken to many women, they're like, we didn't even talk about it. Like, no one spoke about it. Even I remember my aunt and my mum, they used to say, oh, I'm hot. I'm hot. And you're like, hot? What's wrong with you? What do you mean it's hot? It's fine. What's going on? But they never then said, oh, I'm hot because I'm hot. What does that mean? You know, it's not hot. So, some reason we just never spoke about as a female, your body's going to go through these changes. I mean, they just about told you when you were going to have your cycle when you were a teenager. Like, praise the Lord for school, because I mean, my education was when you start your cycle, don't talk to any men. That was it. That was that's it.
oh
That was
wow.
it. We didn't do.
My mother, again, as I said, my mother's a nurse practitioner. So she sat down and went through the whole gamut. She talked about your period and she talked about how to take care of your body. And she
Amen.
went on, I mean, the whole thing. And then she did some things I wish she had never done. She made me watch a girl have her baby at
Oh, Lord.
19
Mm.
without any medication.
Woo!
And that birth control lasted me till I was 28.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord. Amen.
I got married at 25. At 28, I got pregnant. Then I was mad because I was pregnant. My mother was like, "What you mean? You've been married 3 years?" I'm like, I'm just not ready. I'm just not ready.
Yeah, that would scare anybody. I'm gonna let us have a break now, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna touch on another topic. As an educator, one of the things that I look at is we as women are going through struggles, but our students are going through struggles. I'm recognizing that puberty is hitting much younger, okay? And also, or having children with special educational needs is on the rise. And I'm wondering if the things we've gone through, the same emotions and feelings and things as adults, our young people, our students are struggling with too. So when we come back off the break, play a song, let's see if this is something that we can broach on, because I know that you are very versed on this subject. Let's take a break.
I know you got some questions.
I do have
Hardest thing
questions.
you're
He's
going
right.
through. Talk about it.
Talking about mountains, talking about pain, talking about my life, it will change. Talking about all things, I can do all things. Talking about nighttime, no way. And my dreams have been erased. Talking about all things. I said I can do all things.
I understand.
And no, I'll never let you down. Talking about all things. The big and the small things.
So sure.
I can do one thing. I think the devil said, I'm having fun all the time. I need a blessing. I need you to do one thing.
See, I understand.
Don't please, they don't want me.
Just in case I'm wrong.
So it's good to know that things,
Always.
all the big and the small things. I can do one thing. Talking about things, the big and the small things.
Let's go.
God can do one thing.
Just because he's silent doesn't mean that he's still. He's not only preparing it for you, he's preparing you for it. Let's go.
Talking about those things, the big and the small things.
Hallelujah.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yeah.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive. Talking about those things, the big and the small things.
See you.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yes.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive. Talking about those things,
See the blessings
the
coming.
big and the small things.
But he had to get you ready for it.
Talking about doors you've never seen.
Yes, sir.
Blessings on blessings for you to receive.
We can do that.
The
Hallelujah.
big and the small thing.
God.
God can do one thing.
Welcome back to Adventist Radio London. And I was naughty. I never gave you the contact so that you can reach out to us if we're talking about something you want to add or you want some more information about. So our WhatsApp number is 0745 964 2894. That's 0745 964 2894. Please do not hesitate to get intact. People have just said thank you, Paula, for the information, for the Ashwanda. They have gone and found it online. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. So yeah, I just wanted us to broach the topic of, yes, women and adults and many teachers and educators may be going through perimenopausal and postmenopause. But then our young people today are now going through early puberty. We are having young children, girls especially, starting their cycles from 9 years of age. And then boys also struggling with emotions and well-being and hormones from the ages of 11, where usually it kicked in later. So the hormonal imbalances of our children is being impacted. And me personally, having done some research and looked at some things, I am seeing that it's the food that we eat. So where are you on that? What's your thoughts on that? And then we will go into why we think many are struggling with special educational needs.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that. When I was a principal, I used to tell my parents, especially kids who were ADHD, to stay off red drink.
Yes.
red dye, anything with red dye, we told parents that was something that did not need to have their kids have. That's the first thing. The second thing is we told them, no coffee, no sugar, keep away from as much cereal in the morning. And we wanted them to have fruit. We want them to have cereal, non-sugar cereal. And it's amazing to me what parents don't know about the sugar cereals and all of the things that they had for them. And so, I remember I had a seventh grader that came to school with coffee one time. I'm like, what are you drinking coffee for? So I called him mom. I was like, listen, he doesn't need coffee. He's an ADHD kid. He doesn't need coffee. I don't need him to be high before he even comes to school.
Right.
So that's something we really have to have conversations with our parents about. My grandson and I were in the store a couple weeks ago, and he picked up a drink called Prime, and I didn't know what it was. And he was all excited about Prime because he had seen it on the wrestling, and he loves the wrestling. And so I looked at it, and it was an energy drink, and I said, "Mimi's not buying that." And he's like, "But mommy bought it." I don't care what mommy bought. Mimi's not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I informed my daughter, I was like, "Did you know that was an energy drink?" She said, "No, he just picked it up, and I didn't even look at it." Again, part of that is you have to really read what your kids are drinking and what's in those things. Even though the energy drink didn't have caffeine, it had a bunch of sugar.
Wow.
And it said it was gluten free. Okay, gluten ain't in the drink. So I don't
Yeah, that's a new con right now. That is a new.
Water don't have gluten. So that's but so that's what I say about parents. You have to really read these things. We have I come from a church in Savannah, and soon after I got there, I noticed that we had a lot of children with autism. We so for a small church to have 9 people.
Wow. Yeah.
I said there's got to be something in the water. It's got to be something in the atmosphere, something, because you can't tell me that you have 9 families with children with autism. That's something with that.
Yeah, it's same as, when I'm working in the system here, and there's so much more units now set aside in school. Everybody's got IHCP, educational health care plan. We have to have separate inclusion units, alternative behavior. And I'm like, I'm thinking back 20 years, that was not the case. So what's changed now? Like, what is the common denominator that is impacting our children? And the only thing I could see that everybody consumes is the food
and water.
And the water. For those who drink the government juice, as some say, kudos to you, but I like me some spring water. Sorry. And then I made a mistake of I bought some water and I didn't read it, and it was sparkling, and I was so mad because I bought 3 cases of the stuff, and I was like, I'd already opened one, so I can't send it back. But then I started drinking it and I got hooked. Woohoo! And then when I read that it was still the same like water, I said, amen. But no, what is impacting our children? I'm thinking their attention spans are so much shorter. I think as well, from observation of students, because many of our parents are giving the television and the iPad as babysitters. So when your student is now used to things flicking and jumping and moving in color and things off the screen, when you now are speaking to them and you're in real time and you standing still and there's a board with writing, they're like, that ain't doing nothing for me. That's not helping.
Well, and part of it is we have to take through. I've been saying this to teachers for probably as a joke for the last couple of years, that chicken nuggets are killing our children's memories. And so it's something that I have jokingly said for the last couple of years, but I'm really starting to believe that it is in the food and the meat that we eat, and the preservatives and the things that we are consuming, that I really believe that it's a part of the problem. I really do.
I mean, when I think about it, I don't know for there, but here McDonald's is seen as something that you can always give your child as a dinner. I mean, who gives chicken nuggets, fries that don't even decay? That's a scary thing. And the drink that they give you, and that's supposed to be a sustainable meal. There's no nutrition in that meal. There's no nutrients. There's nothing there that's viable that's going to help your child to go to the next. And then if people are serious, they will recognize that when you eat McDonald's, or just one of the foods, you're hungry usually within less than 2 hours. That thing does not sustain you. They could say Big Mac, Little Mac, Duke Mac. That thing, after within 2 hours, you're like, I'm hungry. What can I eat again? So it's not fulfilling you. And one of the things I said, there's a new fad here about eating bagged rice. Like, I don't know how anyone can eat a bagged rice. But anyway, one of my things I'm trying to tell people, anything that you see that is on the shelf and it can last more than 48 hours, it's been preserved to sit there. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
There has to do some form of process to that food. Make it worse as a shelf life, 2 years or something, if it's a canned food. So how can we support our children? And many parents are like, well, I can't afford it. And that's what's scary to me. To eat cheap, eat unhealthy is cheaper than to eat well and eat healthy.
Yeah, and let me, I want people to understand, all the vegetarian meat that we have has preservatives too. So that's not helping the child or the adult.
Oh, yes,
So
please.
everything for that came from Loma Linda came out of a can, and it had preservatives. So we have to think about that too. And that the level of sodium that's in those meats, also we have to take that. I don't want to thinking, oh, I'm a vegetarian, and so that doesn't help me. Oh, no, no, no. Still have it. And then you eat a lot of sugar. We eat
Yes.
sugar, sugar on top of sugar. Every time you go to dessert and they got cake and cookies and pies and whatever else that we're eating, those are things that really we need to think about as well. And then we're not exercising like we should. Kids don't get out and run outside like they used to. They don't get outside and run the streets and, with their friends and ride their bikes. I literally had to make my grandson ride the bike. I was like, we're going to go outside. And I sat outside while he rode his bike. But if you don't make intentional about that, and I know that a lot of parents are working 2 and 3 jobs, and that's part of the problem. But we need to, as a village, help parents raise their kids so that there is a village for your child.
Yes, I totally agree with that, because when I look at, when I see them saying, okay, he has ADHD, he can't sit down, she can't sit down, she's jumping, she's this, she's doing whatever. But you need to allow a child to expel energy. So if the child is not actually doing anything energetic, how are they going to expel that? So of course, when they sit down, they're going to be fidgety because they need to expel that energy. I don't know for you when you were teaching, but the recess time, playtime started to be taken away. They would only have just lunch, and if they were lucky, 1 in the morning, and that was it. And it was like 10 minutes. So
Well,
you're not getting the opportunity to expel that energy.
well, the blessing of COVID, because there's some blessings that came out of COVID.
Oh,
And
yeah.
one of COVID is we started having more brain breaks. So we would get up, kids dance around and jump around and have brain break time. And that has carried over, at least for the K-3 that I have been to. Most of the schools, and I coach teachers in public school as well as private schools. And 90% of the teachers that I've been to, maybe 95, have brain breaks. They take, and now they're starting to have snacks in their lunches now, during their day, because COVID told us that the kids needed that.
Right.
And so that's what they needed. And so that's what we've been doing. So a lot of schools have adopted the mindset that kids need to go outside and play, get a brain break, walk outside, get some air, come back in, because they had masks on most of the day and they needed to get out and get some air and not have that recycled air. So we started letting them go outside and have a brain break. So that's the one blessing that came out of COVID.
So when you saw that, did you see when the students came back into the classroom, they were calmer? What did you see?
Yeah. And they were, and you know, because we had geared them, say, okay, we're going to take our brain break, take our math break, we're going to come back and get to it. And so everybody was ready for instruction at that point. But again, we didn't have that before. So now I
Right.
think it has kind of tapered out a little bit more.
Yeah, because one of the things I like to do is have a floating classroom. And when people are like, what is that? I said, I don't believe that all children can just sit still for each class just straight. I think it's unfair. So what I do is if you can still stay in your desk space, but you may need to stand so that it helps you, because it also helps breathing, helps regulation, then you can stand and then you can sit back down as long as you're disrupting anyone else. If you need to go to the back of the class so that you're not bothering anyone and have some time to just regroup your thoughts and do whatever, then that's something that you do. Because I just feel, especially today with the other distractions that our students have, it's so much harder. Like, I know that we said, oh, everyone has to go on iPads, especially in COVID. Everybody must go on iPad, study on an iPad. But we know with the studies done that you still retain more reading a book. You retain more and you keep in more than when you see on a screen. And I've seen grades dropping from students, the overall educational standard dropping. That's concerning to
Yeah.
me.
So I'm doing my doctorate, as I said yesterday, and part of the research that I'm doing was on the effects of COVID-19 against our children. Now, this what I'm about to give you are statistics only in America, not worldwide. In America, we saw a 70% drop in reading and in math. So those kids who were in during we call COVID kids, the kindergartners, they can't read like they like the kids who came for them and after them.
Wow.
They are having a harder time in school because they weren't in school for instruction. They weren't getting the services if they needed them. They didn't get them. They were home. I had parents that said, "Oh, you know, when it came, we came because we came back to school. The advent of schools, we came back much earlier than public schools did,
Okay.
and some public schools, in Georgia, were only meeting with their kids once a week.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
So you talk about a child who's got special needs who doesn't really learn the way that everybody else learns.
Right.
Now you're them being on an iPad or a computer for 35, 40 minutes with an instructor for once in the week.
Wow.
So no, they didn't learn what they were supposed to learn. And we didn't like online school either, because every child is not an on-school learner. There are certain students that can manage to do online. And most kids cannot. So you really have a lot of students who have problems with reading
Yeah.
and math.
Even though we noticed as well, the babies had issues of development who were COVID babies because they were born to people that had masks on. So they then couldn't see and read faces and get to help. So we've got those children are delayed. Let's just take a quick break and then I want you to just share with parents the best ways that we can support our children and young people who they do say have special educational needs and who I sometimes feel society marginalizes and pushes them aside because they think that they're not perfect, which is just so infuriating to me. So let's just take a music break.
Like, keep coming up ad break. So I was asking yesterday how you got away with playing a good song. No Instagram stuff, but
So I don't keep it straight. It hurts to let go, but it hurts more to stay up. I know you feel, can't forget you. Do it's my life. I'm for you. You got She took me with your failures. Forgive yourself.
Any comments I need to respond to?
Hey, hey, hey.
You talking to me or someone else?
You
What did you say, sweetie?
thing on YouTube to respond to?
Yes. So that's where I'm getting the question. So they were asking you more about the things that you took. So women are like really excited about that. There's someone said they found it now online. So they're very happy for that. And someone else they want to just hear more about what support you can give to parents with children and education. And on Instagram here, there's a lot of hand waving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I cannot see a question. Is there any on WhatsApp? Okay. Yep. Welcome back to Adventist Radio London. You're here with me, your host for this afternoon, Anastasia Ross, the Possibilities Ministries Director for the South England Conference in the UK, and with my beautiful co-host, Paula Sanders Blackwell, all the way from the USA. And we are just talking about we did in the first segment, we spoke about hormonal changes, perimenopausal and postmenopausal that impact women. And now we're talking about the hormonal changes and the special educational needs of our children and young people. So we were here now going to discuss, because we've made observations, and as Paula explained, she's doing her postdoctorate. And she's doing it. Actually, share again what it is you're doing so that they can understand that you really are researching in this area. Just share with them.
So I'm researching the operations of charter schools and Adventist education and the differences for retention for teachers. But I'm also looking at the COVID-19, post-COVID-19, what's happened with our students and the way that they are not reading on level and not doing math on level, and what that means for parents.
Right, awesome. So yes, I mean, I think it's across the board globally that we recognize that the children in the past 5 years, the academic achievements have declined. Okay, so from 2020 to now we're in 25, so let's say 4 years, we can see the academic grades of students prior to COVID to now post-COVID. It's quite alarming for me in what I'm seeing. And I'm just wondering, with the study that you've been doing as well, what's the support and encouragement so that it's not, people don't feel deflated, like, oh Lord, my child, how can we get them to be encouraged that there is still the opportunity for your students to do well? And also recognize, one of the things I also wanted parents to recognize is that children are all individuals. You cannot compare them to the older sibling that did this or this one that did that or something like that. And then also as well, don't be unrealistic. Meet your child's needs where they are. If your child is an A student, fantastic. But if they're a C student, let's let them be the best C student that they are. So they still feel accomplished and that they have something. So what can, on both sides, you've been a parent, you have your daughters are, I know, because I've daughters, they're brilliant minded. What are some of the things you did as a parent and then some of the things you switched over to doing as guiding parents in leadership?
Well, the blessing for me is having twins.
Amen.
I had a child that is an ADHD child, and one of them is not. So I worked with my doctor to help my student, help her with her academics. We work with a licensed therapist, and we also with a school psychologist so that they could help her get the program in place at school so that she could be successful. It does take a lot of patience. In America, we call it an IEP.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what.
it's an
Um,
EHP here, educational healthcare plan here. Yeah.
and that getting that set up so that the student can be successful, having them be evaluated by the doctors and the nurses and the therapists and all of that is all important. And being able to manage their diet, manage their them emotionally, because it is a big difference for them to have to be quote unquote different. And just advocate for parents to say, listen, you're just like every other child, you learn differently. And that's nothing wrong with that. And
Right.
so when we work with them, that's important that they kind of get that idea in their head. And parents have to be advocates for their kids. If
Yeah.
you don't, your child, nobody else will. So it's important that you be an advocate for your child and know the laws in your area, know what services are getting your tax dollars or whatever benefits that you are allowed. Use those benefits for your child's needs and make sure that you are keeping up with all your parent meetings. Make sure that you're in tune with the school and involved because as well, don't just check out. The parent is the first teacher. And so I tell parents all the time, when your child comes to my school, you're the mom at home, I'm the mom at school. So we have to co-parent. And so that's what's important as well. So those are just some things.
I
my
do
parents
know
should-
sadly some parents are like, oh my gosh, I just need to get to school because that's the daycare, that's the respite, you know. And so unless there's blood, don't call me kind of scenario. And sadly, you know, in one sense, I see where they're coming from. But then on the other, I'm like, no, if you don't help us work with your student, with your son or daughter, it's actually going to jeopardize them because they need to know we're on the same team and that we all have the common goal, which is their best interest at heart. And so holistically, as a parent, you mentioned something which was quite key about the diet. What are some of the dietary needs or requirements that you gave your daughter in that situation?
Well, again, as I said earlier, having the red dye, the food the constant junk food we took away. We tried to get her with vegetables. We tried to make sure she had good quality meals, drinking. We cut out the milk. We cut out a lot of the dairy. And those are just some of the things that we did. We still had macaroni and cheese every now and then, but we didn't have it, consistently. We wanted to raw foods that we were cooking and not processed food. So that was also important for us as well.
So when you made the transition to giving her much more freshly made food, did you see a difference in her demeanor, how she reacted?
One of the things that I don't think she realized, but she was not sleeping well. And so when we changed her diet a little bit, I don't think she even noticed that she was sleeping better and that she was waking up less tired and more rested. But again, you can't expect a 14 or 15-year-old to pick up on those things. That's something a parent would recognize. So yeah, there were some things that I knew that was helping her. She didn't have cramps as bad. So there are some things and I told her, I said, and now that she's an adult, I said to her, you need to come away from some of that thing so that you can not have the cramps like you used to, and that will help you.
Okay, awesome. So you saw holistically, it helped her sleep. And one of the things that parents don't recognize, sleep is such a key factor for your students to be able to function better. I know some students, I used to speak to them and I'd say, okay, so your bedtime, you're this age, you should go to bed by about 9. 9? I'll be up till 12, 1 o'clock. I said, doing what? But because the parents don't supervise or they don't go into their room, that's another, don't even let me start on that one, right? So I'm just like, what is this madness? No wonder you're sleeping in my class, you know? And that's important, the food that they eat. I'm glad you mentioned something earlier as well before the break. You said you will give them like a brain break. You know, how important is that for young people to have time out?
Well, research tells us that students need a break every couple of hours. And when we were doing Zoom on for classes, we were given the instructions by a doctor who said that we needed to have their K-2 students only online for about 3 hours. That's it.
That's it. Okay.
So we would have breaks between that so that so we could spread those 3 hours out. And for the K-2 students, that's what we had. And then we did it very different for the 3rd through 8th grade. But we modified our schedule so that they could have a brain break and they would have an opportunity to go get food and go get water and use the bathroom and those type of things, even when they're at home. So we just brought that back to school. We didn't change that. We just brought that back to the classroom.
Great, excellent. And so then when you saw improvement in children's aptitude.
Yeah. What we realized is we have kids that are not online learners. That's what we realized. We didn't have our online learners. We had students who needed each other and they needed to teacher inside. So
The social interaction was very key to their learning and peer to peer. Right. I definitely observed that. So in your leadership role now that you've done as parent, how do you support or encourage a parent to make those positive changes that you yourself saw in your daughter's mannerism for her to best be a great self?
Day in school is so important because you need parent support and you have to educate parents because a lot of parents, Takis and the chips that they give, all those red chips and those hot fries and hot Cheetos and all that stuff was quality food. And we told them we don't allow it in our schools. And we told them why. Because these things are harmful to your children. They may not have a problem with it today, but they may have a problem with it long term. So we wanted to understand that processed food and nothing is more processed than chips.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and I love me some chips. Ooh, anyway, that's another story. But I try to go healthy. I do kettle chips. Not that it makes a difference.
That can do better. But those options that parents were not taking in our school.
Okay. So when you have a child that comes in with an IEP, what is the strategies that you use to support them in that learning environment? So for here, it's the ECHP, or Educational Healthcare Plan, for those of you who are learning the difference. So what are the strategies that you as a team, because I'm sure the student comes, you'll know, okay, Anastasia is coming, she's going to have these certain educational needs. Now, staff who are going to be working with her, these are the things that we need to put in place. What do you put in place? Let's let parents hear and know like what we should be doing, and so that they can have the tools to know when they go to meet their teachers.
So one of the things that I always tell parents is to read the IEP, first of all.
Oh,
if you don't read it, you won't know how to have it. When
Right.
you read it, then you'll know, okay, my child is supposed to get this, or my child is supposed to get that. We can't give you anything that you don't know that you're supposed to get. If you don't know you're supposed to get it, then that's the problem. Secondly, as an Adventist educator, what we have done is at my school, we hired a special needs teacher part-time so that we could help students. We had a couple of students that were autistic, and so we worked with the parents, and so we got them services, and it was a blessing to have them be a part of our school. And so those are parents that rave about our school because we did support them and we did help them. So we used the IEP. If we couldn't duplicate what was in the IEP at our school, then we didn't take it. But if we can duplicate the services that they would be getting in public school, then we would take the student.
Okay, excellent. Because I know sadly sometimes here, because children with the IEPs, they are funded more by the local authority here. So the average student here will get 6 to 8 thousand a year for their study, whereas the child with the healthcare plan will get from 8 upwards, depending on what they have. I mean, I remember we had one student who got 16,000 a year just to support his needs. But his parent was fully aware. She definitely read his plan, knew what her son needed, and ensured that the local authority, the education board, everybody was on board to support her son in the best way that they could. No, I can't reiterate more to tell parents to pay attention. Like when a teacher says this is the situation, or we've observed this in our class and we'd like to refer, or you want to refer, you need to pay attention. You need to read what the report is. You need to then say, because when they make the report, you have an opportunity to challenge or say, no, some of that report isn't adequate or it doesn't fit my child. Then you can send it back. Once you sent it back, they can revise it, you can go through it with them, and then you get the final report. Then from the final report, you say, okay, I accept that this identifies my son or daughter, and we're going to work within these parameters. How hard is it to work with a student where the parents haven't accepted that their child needs the support? Because I know we've had a few of those.
Oh, yeah. I had a parent a couple of years ago. I felt the child was ADHD, and I felt that the mother, first of all, he was an only child, and so very bright, very smart, but he was, and his parents didn't want him to. They wanted to skip him up a grade, and I did not want to. And so they went to my school board chair and said, hey, we want our child to be skipped up. The principal doesn't think so, blah, 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 blah. So then the board voted, okay, for the parent. Well, then we had problems. He got skipped to the grade. He was not ready for that grade.
No.
And they discovered he had ADHD, even though we had told the parent, the doctor. So she took the child out of our school because she was upset. Took him out.
You labeled my child. You labeled my child.
That she thought we were being mean to her child, and we were just that. Needless to say, now I'm no longer the principal of this school. I went back a couple of months ago, right before school started, and who was there trying to re-enroll her child? Same parent.
Yeah. So she's recognized that the support that her son could have received, it wasn't that you were, yeah.
And he's on.
I think personally there is a stigma around having a son or daughter who may have special educational needs. No one wants their child labeled. No one wants their child to be think, oh, that they're different or they're odd. But it just means that they're wired differently. It just means how their thought processes is different. And if you truly get to know them and learn the little idiosyncrasies that they have, there's just amazing, wonderful characters. And you just have to spend that time to recognize, okay, you may have learned it in 2 days, they'll take 9, but they're still going to get there, but with that support and encouragement. But I mean, speaking to parents who have students who have special educational needs, what's some of the supportive things that you share with them, especially when they come for like parents meeting? That can be a traumatic time for a parent. Coming to the parent evening to find out about their child, and they're like waiting, like, oh Lord, what am I gonna hear? What did they do? How do you support them in that space?
Well, again, it's about education. And so once you sit down with parents, and we keep a very tight rein on parents and kids when they have special needs at our school. So we meet with them probably a little bit more often than we do our normal children, normal students. So, and then we give them updates every 3 to 5 weeks, at least they used to. So we try to do, the special needs teacher will keep in touch with the parents. If there's anything that comes up, they kind of want, we also work cooperatively with the local public school for services as well. So then we send paperwork over to them. There's progress monitoring that we do with the students, and that has to be turned in for the state as well. So that process is a really big deal. So yes.
Okay, vigorous. Okay, excellent. And so your students then, for them themselves, you would have seen, I mean, I just saw some of my students the other day saying, welcome to 30. I nearly fell over. I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. When you've seen some of your students matriculate through, how now, when you look back, do you see where the support was fantastic, or you could have maybe supported differently? How when you look back at some of the students, especially those, now you're doing this study over this past 5 years, how do you see where, some changes maybe could have been made, or that we did well?
One of the mistakes that I made is I accepted a student during COVID that whose uncle was a member of our church, and he vouched for the little girl. And the grandmother came to school and said, oh, she's being bullied where she was. We don't want her to be bullied, blah, 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 blah. And so something told me not to take her as a student, but I did based upon the fact that, the members of our church and, she had been coming back and forth. When I finally got her records, because remember, COVID happened and public school wasn't opened. So we weren't getting records from the students until much later. So we got the records for this child. It was a pile this thick.
Mercy.
Like 100 pages of stuff that this child had been through. And so, I prayed about it, but I called the mother. I was like, okay, you all weren't honest with me about what was happening here. And she just, oh no, it's not that. And the very same things they said in them papers is the same thing that she started doing at our school. And so I required the parent to the grandmother, because she was not on medication and the doctor recommended her to be on medication. Grandmother refused.
Yeah.
And I said to the grandmother, she can't come back unless you follow these directions, because we need her to be in the best possible place for her to learn.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't. And then sometimes she came back to school, and sometimes she even say to me, well, my grandmother told me to tell you I took my medicine, but I didn't.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I started to realize, okay, this is not going to work. So I wrote the grandparent a letter. I said, listen, if you're not going to work with me, then you're going to have to take her out.
Yeah.
So she ended up taking her out. Now, a year later, the state took her away from the grandmother.
Oh no.
Because she and the grandmother got into some sort of altercation. There was some issue. And so that's what ended up happening. So it was just one thing after another. It was just one thing. And so there are some, but if the grandmother had listened to me in the beginning and put her on the medicine so that it could balance her out, because she had, mental issues. Her mother had mental issues.
Right.
So she was the grandmother, and she was like 75 years old trying to take care of this girl. And this girl was 10 at the time. And so they ended up taking her away from her grandmother. And, I felt really bad about how it spiraled out of control. But I knew that that's where we were going if no one stood up and said anything. And I'm sitting over here going, hey, we need help here. She needs help. And no one was helping.
Right. No, I hear you. I've had a situation. I was actually assaulted by one of our students because, his treatment plan was not followed through. And I totally understand. It hurts my heart to see where I feel we fail our children because we are not taking positive action and affirmative action. And even to be just making them understand that there are boundaries. I speak to some parents, and like I said, they don't know what's on their children's phones. They don't know what's in their room. Oh, I don't go in there. That's their space. You don't have space in my house because you don't pay bills. You can have a space when you in your own home. But as long as you're in my home, I need to know what's happening in my space. Reason being is because I need to keep you safe. Now,
Absolutely.
we're going to have a break, but just to end off, I want just to make parents aware more of the new terminologies like sexting, and grooming, and what's happening to our students online, especially with Roblox, Minecraft, and what's this other one? I forgot the one that they've seen the study for. So because I'm not going to keep you much longer, so I'm just really appreciative. But let's just have a music break, come back, and we can close, and then we can just give them the knowledge on that, and then we can let you go and be fabulous out there where you are. It's fine.
For me. And you see, you make it. No, it's okay. You don't stop. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
This is just posting my your stories. Yeah, he's doing okay.
I might finish if it lets me. Wait for the music to finish.
Yeah.
Okay, so other people online have just been saying that good afternoon, thank you, and someone called Goldilocks. Have a good day, and they appreciate what you're sharing. And on here, more waving, but I can't see. No, I don't see that they've said anything. Yeah, just for those. Okay.
I gotta take a call from the US. Hold on.
Okay. Oh, okay. So we are here on Adventist Radio London, and we're just coming into the final trot. And we just want to share with you, as parents, some things and top tips that you can look for to support and take care of your students or your children. We've also been told from Sicily that we're having a great program. So thank you to you, Paula. You are, making waves here in the UK and all over the globe, because this is now international. So here we are, my dear sister. We're out there. We're out there. So I just want to give you, I've actually recognized of late, and I've been doing the research as I like to keep up to date with the laws, that many of our students, especially in the school environment, are being solicited with sexting. Grooming and sexting is a big thing, and many parents are not aware of it. So in the UK, sexting is also known as sexual communication or youth-produced sexual imagery, and we've had to now put it in legislation. The Serious Crime Act 2015 includes sexting under sexual communication and youth-produced sexual imagery. And it's anything that is created, video, photographs, shared or possessed by anyone under the legal age of 18. Sexting is the act of exchanging sexual messages or images, including creating, sharing, and forwarding sexually suggestive nude or nearly nude images, sending explicit text messages, sending pictures in your underwear, or not wearing many clothes. Sexting is a criminal offense, especially when it involves children. It's illegal to make, distribute, possess, or show any indecent image of anyone under the age of 18, because children cannot consent. Under 18 years of age, legally, they are not seen to be able to consent. Cyberflash as well is sending an unsolicited sexual nude image to a victim. So you now have recognized someone has been in distress or whatever, and you now send it to them. You also have deep fake, which is sharing manipulated or computerized images of videos of victims. So that's when someone will threaten you and tell you, I've got some nude pictures of you. I'm going to expose it and show it to somebody. And then you have down blouse, which is sharing a downward facing photo of a woman or young girl with her chest out, but without her consent. So there's many more things that entails, but I know that these games that our students are on is exposing them to being abused in this fashion. Over there in the US, how much more aware of this are you, and especially as an educator?
So every year at the first beginning of the year, we always have, we call home and school meeting. And one of the things that we talk about is the phone, because the phone is a very powerful tool, but it is all a demonic tool. So we talk about applications that parents can use that they can monitor what their kids are doing. One of them that we do recommend is Bark. Bark is a application that parents can put on their phone as well as their kids' phone, and it monitors all of their internet access, and then informs the parent when they get messages and all of that. So we always suggest. I had some students who apparently doing and had a whole bunch of stuff going on during Christmas break. And then basically the parents sent me all the screenshots of everything that went on, and we had to address it as a school. So we told parents, if your child, when you come to our school, if your child comes here and gets caught with a lot of stuff, we will deal with it. And we did. So we have to be very careful, because it is against the law in the United States as well. So that's something that's very real. You have to check that phone. You have to monitor that phone. You have to monitor those games. All of that has to be monitored. So that's something that we advocate for our parents to do. And we suggest that application Bark for many of our parents, because we know what's out there.
Right. I mean, so some of the games, of course, you might be Fortnite. That was the other one I couldn't remember. Fortnite is one where they're being targeted, Roblox, Minecraft, because these are used by predators. Any game that's multiplayer is a game that is often popular with children and young people, and that's where they come in like they're your friend, and then they solicit you in there. Games that encourage you to spend money, which is another one, game design, encourages children to spend money to improve their performance, and they start to feel pressured because they want to buy new players to match up to the other people in the team. So they're so smart the predators are so smart on how they, what's the word I'm looking for? Prey. That's it, on your children. So the top 5 games where predators target kids, okay? And I just, I want this to be out there so that people know, okay? Is number 1, Roblox. I don't like that game. I'm just telling you. I do not like that game. I have seen the impact it has had on children, and it's frightening. And then they watch these videos on YouTube to try and match to go with the thing, and those things, the content is not appropriate. Pay attention, parents. It does have parental controls, but parents don't usually set that up first before they set the child on there. There's another game which is called Among Us, which is a popular murder mystery app. And it doesn't allow private chatting within the app, but there is a public chat where you can then, beat us. Minecraft is another one. Supposed to be started off and created with Lego, but it's now taken a whole new platform. That is concerning to me. Fortnite is the other one. It's also the effort to keep your platform safe for the child is so much harder because there's so many different layers. Okay. Then you have first person, so game Call of Duty and Apex Legends, which really are students and it should not be on, but they are. And those are just a few of the others that they have. And I'm just like, how is it that we are allowing our children to be unsupervised on these platforms? Because grooming takes time. You don't just see somebody for the first time and say, come with me. Or you don't just meet someone for the first time and say, take off your clothes. These people have had time to get to know your child, to get to recognize their weakness, that they can then tell them to do these things. I mean, how often have you seen where we haven't supervised our students enough, our children? Even from some of the work that they do, I've seen students that I know that they didn't have support or supervision with that work for what comes into me. And I'm like, take that back.
Right. Well, part of it is that, as I said, I've got to get on a plane in a moment, but I want to advocate for parents. I want to beg parents, please be more proactive and not reactive. Look at the phone. If you're paying the bill, then you should be looking at the phone, period.
Yes.
2, look at the games. Have parent controls on the games. If we monitor what my grandson plays Roblox, but he only is allowed to play with people that we approve.
Right.
So there are ways to get around that, but there are ways for them to do what needs to be done. We don't want to curb his fun, but we do want him to have fun in Jesus' name.
Amen.
And we want to keep him safe. So those are things that I highly advocate. And I'm so excited that you're talking about this because I don't think it's talked about enough in our churches. We gotta protect our children. Even from people that they claim they know. We have to be very diligent about that and be able to guard their innocence as long as we can. And before I go, I want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. The last couple of days, I've enjoyed being involved with the Evidence Radio. I always have a good time when I come here. And I appreciate everything that you guys do and the warmth and the love that you all support me. So thank you for reaching out to me for this event.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. So you can touch base. For those of you who are still here in the UK, you can reach out. She's here this weekend. We're going to have an awesome time at the De Vere Wokefield Estate in Reading. But for those of you who miss it, oh well, too bad. Be square. So thank you so much for joining us, Paula. Please enjoy the rest of your time and I will see you on Friday.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
before the war. We never had no star. Playing with racing cars. Getting imaginary trips to Mars. And we all on those flights with superhero types. Life shows you it's worth. We'll search for diamonds tonight. So fun, you say, but I was wrong. And it is, now I wanna know. It's so certain, stop. Is it possible? Oh, is it possible? The sky's gray, and it's really gonna bring new life. Touch the ground, but the lights don't have you seen the take back. Can we get back to the way it was when we're still in the stars? Found the edge inside, and I'll be alive. And we all inside your hearts. There's nothing left to fail. When you don't have to share, no, it just ain't fair. But looking back, somehow I know God was looking for. Couldn't bear the weight. And so, while we're alive, it's not too late. So long, innocent, but how you win? And you, I wanna know. It's so true.
See, I'm here jamming all by myself. No. I want to say thank you to all of you who have joined us this afternoon. For all the things that you've heard on the program today, please, you can reach out to us. You can contact us here at Adventist Radio London, or you can email me at aross@secadventist.org.uk, and I'll be able to share that information with you. Adventist Possibility Ministries is here for you. Topics that we will talk about throughout the weeks will be things like hidden disabilities, special educational needs, how to tap into resources, the Adventist Carers Network, which we are starting, you know, just working with you individually to navigate life in the best way possible, your mental health and well-being. You know, how do you be a positive parent as well as then look after yourself? Don't negate you, okay? One of the things that we do, especially in our Christian space, is we think we just have to care continually for everybody else and we don't take care of ourselves. I love to use the plane analogy. If you're on the plane and you have the stewardess in the aisles and they're like, now this is the instructions if the plane goes down. Now you don't want to hear that mind, but you know, they say they put on the life jacket and they say, this is the light, this is the whistle, pull here so you can float in the sea. Lord forgive if we get in the sea. And then they tell you, oh, and the air mask is going to drop down. Now we can't breathe. Have mercy. But then when you put that on, it says, put your mask on first before you go to help anybody else. Why? Because if you keeling over and you choking and you can't, how you going to save somebody? No, let's be smart. So let's take some time out to take care of you, okay? If you don't take care of you, your cup is empty. You cannot take care of anyone else. So Adventist Possibility Ministries right here in the South England Conference is here to support you on that journey. Thank you for spending time with us today. We look forward to seeing you real soon. Stay blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.